helping your managed services clients build their own security culture? And is regulatory compliance governing your tool sets and policies? That and the latest news and trends in the managed security space coming right up on Cyber for Hire.
Building bridges between managed security providers and their clients, it's the podcast where MSPs, vCISOs, and end users take a united stand against cybercrime. This is Cyber for Hire.
You know what's frustrating about managing security as an MSP? It's knowing that even after you've reviewed a system, firewall, or endpoint to make sure it's secure, it can still change the next day and you might never find out. Let me tell you, that sucks. That's why I want to tell you about LionGuard. See, some vendors talk about being a single pane of glass, but LionGuard actually delivers. They pull data from over 70 systems, use automation to detect changes, and alert you about the things that matter via a ticket in your PSA. If you truly want to secure your customers, visit msspalert.com/LionGuard to check it out for yourself or sign up for a demo today. All right, welcome to episode number 13 of Cyber for Hire. How's everybody doing today? I'm Bradley Barth with SC Media in New York, and joining me today, 6 time zones away in sunny Hawaii, is my co-host and partner in cybercrime, Ryan Morris, principal consultant with Morris Management Partners. Welcome, Ryan. You know, Ryan, we're taping this on a Thursday, and I will tell you it's going to take all of my discipline for my eyes not to wander over to my phone or my TV to check the latest scores of the March Madness tournament to see how my office bracket is doing. Just got to warn you about that.
See, now, you know what? I completely I acknowledge and I accommodate that, because this isn't just any Thursday. It is the Thursday, right? And just for those statistics-oriented folks that are in the audience, 1.6 quadrillion. That is the odds. 1 in 1.6 quadrillion is the odds that you will pick a perfect bracket, all 63 games in the tournament. However, one of the betting sites did indicate that a rough knowledge of college basketball could increase your odds from a quadrillion to just 1 in 120 billion. So what I'm talking about here is just a little bit of knowledge makes you 1,000 times smarter than the average Joe. I feel like that makes me feel good.
As the quote goes from Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying there's a chance. So we'll but yeah, I have an office bracket to win, so we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, yeah, plenty to cover today as always, but some news is just so important it can't wait, which is why we want to share with everyone what's top of mind today. So here's your headline. On March 10th, Silicon Valley Bank, a major lender to venture-backed technology startup companies, experienced the second largest bank failure in U.S. history following a bank run. The CEO of Horizon 3 AI wrote in an opinion column for SC Media just recently that some cash-hungry tech startups, including cyber companies, found themselves in a tough spot because, according to him, the bank required an exclusive relationship when opening up a line of credit. During the panic, some borrowers chose to cancel the line of credit, which resulted in large penalty fees, while others waited too long to take action and had their funds frozen. But this is not the only lesson here, just corporate banking strategies. There's another lesson. Cyber companies can also learn from the bank's own mistakes. And according to my good friend Ryan Morris here, this came down to a failure of risk management and misaligned strategies. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to explain more. Ryan, why is this top of mind for you?
So as with most disciplines in life, you know, being a human, being an employee, being a client of an organization, everything we do is usually like 1% about the rocket science, the genius level knowledge, the most advanced capabilities that we bring. And it's about 99% about the fundamentals, about doing the right things the right way and paying attention over time. I think this makes more sense in the context of Silicon Valley Bank than literally anything else that we will take away from this gnarly experience, right? If you're familiar with the bank, SVB has had a reputation, not only in the technology industry, but in other industries, for being a gold standard institution, right? Innovative, forward-thinking, but robust and profitable. This has been not just a bank, it has been the bank of the technology industry. And somewhere along the line, they took their eye off the ball, apparently, allegedly, and stopped paying attention to basic stuff like diversification in their portfolio and making sure that they had short term hedges against long term bets and other things that a basic banker would kind of wake up in the morning and go, well, yeah, that's what you do when you're a banker. And yet, the geniuses, the rocket scientists who were leading the bank of technology, didn't do those things. See, now I read these headlines, I heard all the stories about startups, about the venture backed companies, and I understand what the challenges are. But my main takeaway instantly was, over here in the business of cybersecurity, we are often fixated on the nth degree, right? We're fascinated by the most advanced, the most complicated use cases, and the most rocket science technology that we could possibly bring to solve that one outlier case that nobody else can deal with. And yet, the research that we've been publishing for the last couple of years indicates that more than 85% of successful penetrations in a cybersecurity threat environment happen due to things like patch management and password management and just the simple fundamentals. It is our job to pay attention to the boring things. In addition to the science, in addition to the fun advanced things, I think what we need to do is kind of sit back and learn from the lessons of Silicon Valley Bank and say, you know what? Sometimes it's the easy stuff that makes us good at what we do, and we don't have to be geniuses every minute of every day. Let's just, I don't know, stay in business, and that might be success today.
Pay attention to the boring things. Hopefully, you're not including me in that category, Ryan.
Not at all.
But
Not at all.
okay, good, good. I feel better now. For those who wish to write in and share their thoughts on this or any other topics, please write to us at cyberforhire@cyberriskalliance.com. Anyway, that's our top of mind hot take for the day. More news later in the show. But first, it's time for our featured MSSP business and industry topic of the week, presenting our big idea in business: helping your managed services clients build their own security culture. Security is a shared responsibility between MSSPs and their clients. Yes, the provider was hired to do a job, whether it's SOC operations or threat intelligence, whatever it may be, but part of the job is also to consult and communicate with the client to help them gain some degree of self-sufficiency. This discussion will reveal how providers can teach their clients how to develop a secure corporate culture and how to share responsibility and accountability for security matters. And that brings us to our special guest today. He is Ryan Jamieson. So we have two Ryans here. He is head of advisory services at Redacted. That's the cybersecurity services company. I'm not withholding information here, literally the company Redacted. Ryan Jamieson brings over 20 years of experience in technology and risk management across multiple industries. With a history of building security programs from scratch, he seeks to embed security and risk awareness into the culture of the company and create sustainable control environments that preserve business agility. Ryan joined Redacted in 2021 from EY, where he worked to strengthen the internal controls environment, protecting the most sensitive data of thousands of clients. Before that, he built the security program at Take-Two Interactive. He served as the BISO of North American operations at RTL Group, and he spent nearly 7 years protecting card members and their data at American Express. So, Ryan J., thank you so very much for being here today. Glad you could join us. I want to start with this. Ryan, you said to me in a preliminary discussion how companies that don't rely on some kind of a MSSP service, especially to fill in the gaps in controls that they lack themselves, are quote, speeding without a seatbelt because their risk increases as they go. Now, while the MSSP may be the seatbelt, the client still needs to be a good driver and obey the rules of the road. It's a shared responsibility. So talk about that sort of interplay between, yes, the MSSP has to go in and has a job to do, but the actual client needs to develop a security culture of their own, don't they?
Oh, for sure. right? I mean, it is a shared responsibility model. And even though you may be hiring experts to come in and help you understand and manage your risks, your outside experts are never going to know the details of the company as much as the company itself will. How the individual processes work, both officially and unofficially, how things actually get done at the company, where the data lives, who's collecting what data, the mountain of technical debt that nobody likes to talk about. All of those things require partnership to be able to surface those as issues within the firm. So that way your consultants, your MSS folks can come in and actually assist with managing the risks inherent in all of that.
So, we talk about the idea, and again, Ryan, welcome very much. A quick editorial comment for everybody out there in the audience. We're just doing our civic duty today to bring you your quota of Ryans in as much of a concentrated way as possible. You can never get enough Ryans in this world. So we'll go back and
Agreed.
forth here a little bit today. So we talk about culture a lot around cybersecurity, right? The general topic that everybody comes back to is the human is the weakest link in cybersecurity. And that sounds a little condescending. That sounds a little harsh, right? From your perspective, as you look at it, not just from business process and tools, but from the people part of this process, how do we make security part of the culture without it sounding like a scold or sounding like people
Yeah.
are about to get in trouble?
So first, I hate that line that the people are the weakest link, right? Because we're just people using tools built by other people to facilitate the work that we're getting done. So it's like that adage: it's turtles all the way down. Well, it's just people all the way down, right? You can't blame your employees because they haven't done something when there's fundamental flaws in the software that we're all relying on a daily basis. So that aside, from a cultural perspective, every company's got one, right? It's either a culture where you've acknowledged that and it's very thick in the organization, or it's not something that's specifically stated, but it's there. And so understanding what the corporate culture is already off the gate is important before you even think about how you're going to apply security to that culture. Because what you're trying to do is weave in a new storyline to somebody's existing tale. You can't just come in and say, we're going to rewrite the whole thing. I think we've all seen Game of Thrones. No spoilers here for anybody who hasn't, but they made a TV show out of a book series. And halfway through, things started going rapidly downhill. And part of that was because the person who had built the culture of the story to begin with was not involved in the second half to the extent that he was in the first half. And so as we try to apply security into the storyline, we need to make sure that we're always maintaining relationships with the original authors, the people who have created that culture, the people who found that culture, the people who day to day are embedded in it, and they need to be a part of the conversations all the time. Otherwise, you're going to have something that does a kind of a crappy ending.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you really have to adapt to what your client's philosophy and the culture that they've started with, and then build off of that, rather than force them to adhere to standards that you want to impose as the MSSP, then obviously that requires a little bit of customization for each individual client, understanding their strengths and weaknesses.
Indeed.
Where do you find overall, among a lot of MSSP clients, what are some of the most common or flagrant gaps in security culture that you seem to encounter more often than others?
Well, it's people trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. It's basically thinking about like, how do we apply security? And I think those of us who have been in the biz long enough know someone who has attempted to come in like Moses with the 10 Commandments and saying, thou shalt do all of these things. In many cases, if you're working in a creative industry or in a creative company, that's not going to fly. It's just not going to stick because those people think, hey, look, that violates the way that we operate. If you're working in a highly technical space where you've got a lot of geniuses, to quote Ryan's earlier thing, that are working on those 1% problems, and you come down with basic rules, they're like, oh, I'll never fall for that. I'm too smart. So like figuring out how the actual company itself works is a key component here. I worked at a video game company, Take-Two Interactive. So the key that I found to unlock the culture there was gamification. how do we make security into a game that everybody can participate in? And that became how we started deploying more and more things. We kept metrics, we kept competitions on things. So I'm not here to like throw different industries under the bus and say this is where your gaps are. Most of the time, it's because people are trying to do something that doesn't fit or isn't congruent with the way that the organization itself functions. And that's why they're going to run into problems.
And, in the spirit of turtles all the way down, we see that there's a tremendous gap or a variation in the compliance with security strategies from staff
Oh, yeah.
through middle management through executives, right? Often the worst offenders are the most senior individuals because I'm the boss. I don't have to
Yeah.
follow the rules and somebody else will do it for me. Is there an enforcement mechanism? Is there something, I like your idea of gamification. I think for many cultures that would be appropriate. But is there a way to get the boss to actually play in? Because, he's the one who's got those quarterly financial reports and, all the most valuable information in the business that they are transiting every day. How do we get that not just for staff, but for executives to buy into that culture of security?
In those cases, I found that it's about building a personal relationship with those executives, taking the time to understand what it is that they do, and having them explain to you as a consultant that they have hired all of the things that they are involved in, because that can begin conversations around minimizing risk at their level. So, for instance, you don't need root access across your Active Directory environment. Like, how many times are you doing domain administrator functions as an executive? And oftentimes they say they are not. They're too busy doing other stuff. And it's like, okay, well, then you don't need that access. Now, getting people to give up access like that is oftentimes difficult, but explaining the risks that are there and oftentimes exhibiting the risks. And thankfully, we've got a whole library of bad things that have happened to other people that we can draw on as examples about why you want to be able to minimize risk as an executive to your organization. So thinking about it that way and doing a very personalized sales pitch to those individuals, I found has been the most successful tactic.
Lines of communication, of course, are very important. So if you're an MSSP and you see one of your clients is really a bit of a laggard in terms of adopting some of the security controls and practices that you want them to see, you may not really be in a position to fully enforce them with some kind of consequences, but you should at least be able to talk to the stakeholders and hash out, here's where we see things may be going wrong. So talk a little bit about what goes into that ongoing, continuous communication to make sure that you are in sync and are on the same page in terms of what your collective vision of what the security culture is supposed to look like.
Yeah. So when we begin our engagements, the first thing that we do is we sit down and have conversations with all of the folks that we can get our hands on, because we want to understand how the company works under the hood. So we're not really diving deep into the control environment. It's more about like, what do you guys do to make money? How do you make the money? What is the process by which you're making your widgets or your services or any of these other things? Because if we don't understand the fundamental components of how the business itself operates, we're not going to be successful. Once we've done that and we have a good understanding and we're kind of on the same wavelength, then we talk about the control environment. And what we ask right at the outset is, why are we here? Right? We know altogether what we should be doing generally, and in some cases we don't, and then we inform. But oftentimes it's we've tried to do things and it hasn't worked. Okay, well, let's talk about why it hasn't worked. And then we work through the details and what blew up before and what has blocked progress before. And we think about what we can do organizationally to deal with those roadblocks and then start iterating through our progress, through our roadmap, and thinking about how these projects are going to layer on top of each other to enable additional functions. Now, as we do all of these projects together, right, communication is I cannot overstate how important communication is, because as security practitioners, we are change agents. We are changing how the company operates. And in more than one case, has there been a critical business process that relies on overprivileged accounts to go off and do things. And so you need to have conversations about those processes, but If you don't know what the processes are because you haven't done the work to understand the business, that's a landmine you're going to step on, and it's going to be ugly. So making sure you understand the ramifications of your actions and then being able to communicate not just to the people that you're working with on a day-to-day basis, but collaborating with those folks for org-wide communications, for targeted communications, for different affected user groups. All of that is vital to make sure that you're going to be successful, because the most important thing is that there are no surprises. The only surprises we should be getting are from bad guys. If we're doing internal changes, this should all be very well documented, and it should be as clear as day for most people.
See, now I understand this from your perspective about the need to adapt our approach and communication style to the culture of the customer's organization. I also have worked with cybersecurity professionals for a very long time, and I understand their personalities as well. You have interpersonal skills. You are adaptable, and you can change your tone, change your style depending on who you're speaking to or what their culture is. I know a lot of really smart cyber techs who don't have that facility, who might be a little bit more likely to do the because I said so, damn it. That's why that's the way that they put these things across. How do we train the team on the service provider to embrace this adaptable or flexible communication style and to really put that culture thing front and center in their working process?
So for my team, part of that is getting everybody that I can on the calls. So they don't have to have a speaking role, but they should at least be there to understand the dynamics of the conversation. And when we have clients who we're struggling with, or for whatever, we have internal meetings about how these things work. Like, why are they not listening to our great advice? Well, let's talk about that. They're not listening to our great advice. Oh, it's because it would totally fundamentally change how their company operates. That's a problem, right? And we have to be able to map to where they're at. I try to impress upon our team all the time. Our clients pay us for expertise, right? And we can give them the expertise, but they're not going to keep coming to us if we keep telling them things that we know to be true in a way that upsets them. So we need to make sure that we are giving a message in a way that is palatable. I learned this in the Army a long time ago, in that if you are training somebody and they have not learned what you are attempting to train, it's probably your fault, not theirs. And the gap is oftentimes in communication. It's not that they're dumb, it's that you were unable to explain it in a way that they understand. And so we have to come back to that fundamental component of communicating to others. Like, yes, we all work in cybersecurity, and many of us fall into the trap of thinking we're the smartest guy in the room. But the reality is that even though we may be, we still need to be humble and talk to our clients and understand where they're at so we can communicate on their wavelength.
Another great way to mature your organization's security culture is to expand your network within the security community by connecting with other professionals and experts. And so there are organizations out there, whether you want to talk about professional development organizations like an ISACA or an ISC squared, research and think tank organizations. You have information sharing organizations like ISACs and ISOWs. To what extent do you try to also encourage your various client organizations to build out these networks a little bit more, and to really be able to soak in all of the knowledge and expertise that is available out there within the community?
All the time. If they have staff who are, one of the prerequisites we have for many of our engagements is there has to be someone technical over there to do the work. And so when we find these technical people, those are conversations that we have, right? There are no new problems under the sun. These are all things that somebody has dealt with before in some capacity. Now, the nuances may differ, but these are common problems that we're bumping into. And specifically within an industry, you're going to see the same problems show up as a pattern. And the nice thing about working in security is that you can collaborate, because we all have a shared opponent, and they're called criminals, and they're bad. And so To say that you're going to go and work with somebody else in your industry to solve a problem because you're fighting criminals is a pretty easy conversation to have when you're talking about, hey, let's make security better. So it could be something as, straightforward as joining your local ISA chapter or ISACA chapter and going to some meetings and talking with folks to say, is there anybody in my industry that I can commiserate with at the bare minimum. And it may be that you go the other route and work within a professional organization specific to your industry and then go search for technical or security folks to go and have conversations with. I can tell you as someone who has helped build out, an ISAL for the video game industry, at the beginning, it can be kind of hard because us security folks can be kind of paranoid and hold our cards kind of close to our chest. But after a while, right, that breaks down and we're able to have good conversations about the challenges that we face, about the threat actors that we're dealing with, and about the solutions that we've come across to be able to solve the problems that we're all running into.
See, again, everybody has had these problems, and I agree with you. Sometimes the first step to effective community is just commiserating. Just like when you realize I wasn't the only idiot that did that thing and fell victim to that. That's valuable.
Right. I mean, it's the old story about if you're an administrator, at what point in your career did you crash production? It's not about if you've done it, it's just when you've gotten there and hit that benchmark.
Exactly. Was it early on in your career? Did you get that out of the way? That's the way we all live, right? Excellent information. And I really think, our audience will benefit, but everybody across the security sphere, I believe, needs to spend more time paying attention to the communication side and to the cultural side. For all the hard science that we have in tools and in frameworks and in the way that we deal with cybersecurity, all of that is just trivia if the people don't want to and if the people aren't engaged and aware and motivated, right? So I think that this is an incredibly valuable conversation. Before we let you go, Ryan, one of the things we like to do here, we like to get to know the folks who come on as our guests a little bit better. And one of the ways we do that is by talking about a segment that we call What Scares You? So our industry, we live with a community of Chicken Littles, right? The sky is always falling, and there's always going to be something on the horizon. But fear doesn't necessarily motivate change. So we tend to get a little cynical and we tune that stuff out. But any savvy professional in this industry still has something that literally freaks them out. What is it about the world of cybersecurity right now that scares you, Ryan?
So, as I said, there is nothing new under the sun. So the latest exploit is just the latest exploit. There will be more later. So I am less concerned about those things. The technical problems that we bump into in cybersecurity don't keep me up at night. It comes back to that human element. And as you said earlier, a lot of people in our industry struggle to communicate. And that makes getting things done more difficult. And then when we're faced with bureaucracy, and it takes its many shapes and sizes and flavors, be it at a big company or a little company or government, which is like the mother of all bureaucracies, right? Things go slow and they stop and they get lost and we get bored and we can't accomplish our tasks. But that's the thing that worries me the most. It's our ability to communicate clearly, to carve through the bureaucracy and to stay on track to be able to move the needle and get stuff done. That's what I worry about the most is our ability to stay consistent, because I'll tell you what, criminals are consistent. They are consistently after us. And, foreign governments are consistently after us. So as the defenders, we have to be as consistent as our opponents.
Yeah, absolutely. And nimble enough to be able to pivot, as needed, or to be able to respond when there is a new threat. And if you do have things like red tape or different levels of decision making or approval that you have to go through, as a defender, that immediately puts you at a disadvantage. So I actually love the idea of your bureaucracy or red tape being the thing that scares you, because I think for anyone who's ever perhaps had to, get their license renewed at the DMV or something like that, we all know how scary, truly scary, bureaucracy can actually be. Any last thoughts from you, Ryan M.?
You know what? I will wrap up here in the conversation. And again, Ryan, I'm sure that people will gravitate to you because that's the way you come across, right? I think this is a conversation that people need to continue to have. How do people get in touch with you outside of here, right? You're a proponent of community. We would love to get you involved in our community as well. So if folks are listening in and they want to reach out to you and continue this conversation, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so clearly they can come and visit the website, which is redacted.com. And then I have the extremely unique email address of first initial last name. So Ryan or R Jamieson at redacted.com. Please feel free to reach out that way or through our website, and we'll get in touch as quickly as we can.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks very much, Ryan. We're so glad you could be here. Not you, Ryan, the other Ryan.
Thank you.
But that's going to wrap up the first half of our show. Please return for the second half of our episode, featuring our MSSP business and industry topic of the week: is regulatory compliance governing your tool sets and policies? That plus our InfoSec news rundown and our Dear Cyber for Hire advice column segment. So we'll see you all in a moment on the other side.